Why exactly is it that narcissists seem to target neurodivergent people, and why is it that neurodivergent people tend to stay, even when it's destroying us? So today we're going to break down the psychology, the science, the differences between neurodivergent and neurotypical people, and how this all relates to being in relationships with narcissistic, abusive people, how they respond to this type of manipulation. Research shows that narcissistic people like to target people that provide them with constant attention and validation. When you're neurodivergent, you are literally the most precious source of supply because of the way that you're wired. Because you trust literally, you will take their promises at face value, even though they're lying. With intense empathy, you give them more emotional energy than a normal person would. You give them more understanding, more depth, and you have intense hyperfocus, which means that the person that you're with can literally be the only person in the world that exists in your eyes. Narcissistic people love that. They literally love being the center of attention, and they love the fact that they're the only person that you see in the world. They that is like optimum, premium, high grade supply for them. With a hyper focus as well, you are literally focused on the relationship and nothing else. Part of that is also staying hyper focused and locked in on fixing the relationship to keep the relationship. And then with rejection sensitivity, you literally will take anything and everything, breadcrumbs, all of it, in order to hang on to the relationship and the hope that it's going to work out. You will basically tolerate mistreatment to avoid being abandoned. Neurotypical people, on the other hand, they aren't really as prone to the isolation tactics. They have more people telling them to leave, and they don't really feel like they'll be alone because they have a wider network. Because of social conditioning as well, they are able to notice inconsistencies and to leave toxic situations a lot faster, a lot sooner. They don't get so attached. So the reason why neurodivergent people are much more delicious to these energetic vampires is because neurodivergents will give and give and give and have no limits. They will keep giving validation long after depletion. Especially when you're neurodivergent, sometimes you aren't really in tune with your own needs. So if you're hyper-focused on something, you can forget to eat, you can forget to use the bathroom, which makes you prone to being drained. Neurotypical people are more likely to disengage when they feel drained, when their effort feels wasted, because they have a bigger social circle as well. The feedback that they get makes it easier for them to leave these relationships. They have a bigger support system. So now I want to talk about the difference in the responses to gaslighting and perception. So if you're neurodivergent, the gaslighting kind of goes under the radar a little bit because you're so used to people telling you that you're too sensitive, invalidating your sensory experiences, invalidating your needs, invalidating your existence, basically. That's why it's easy for you to be gaslit. It basically echoes lifelong invalidation. And because of that, it makes it easier for you to outsource your reality and your perception to your narcissistic partner or to narcissistic people in your life. It doesn't even have to just be a partner. It could be like a friend, even family. So for neurotypical people, gaslighting does still destabilize them, but neurotypical people often triangulate reality with their friends, their family. They kind of cross-check, and that helps them see that someone is being manipulative and, not making sense, and sheds light on the inconsistencies. Also, neurotypical people are more likely to resist the "you're crazy" narrative that narcissists love to use. There have been a lot of studies on trauma that show that consistent invalidation basically it does something to your brain that makes your brain doubt itself constantly, which then makes it more susceptible to being gaslit. It rewires your brain's threat response, so self-doubt becomes normal. Another thing that people in narcissistic, abusive relationships struggle with is cognitive dissonance. Easier to navigate when you have a support system and a bigger social circle. Most neurodivergent people don't really have that. It's pretty normal for neurodivergent people to not really have that many friends. Neurodivergent people have experienced lifelong exclusion usually from social circles. Not only do they not have a support system to help them see things clearly, but it's the literal thinking that we have that makes inconsistencies really, really hard to reconcile. It's so hard for us to understand how two things that are true can exist at once. Like, we're struggling to really understand the inconsistency, It drives you insane. It's like if you have OCD and you see that something's just like, you just want it to be straight, but then no matter how, like, you kind of position it, it's just not going to be, like, it just doesn't somehow fit. It's like that. Yeah. I mean, obviously you'd only understand this if you had OCD, but yeah. And then as well, hyperfocus keeps you stuck on this inconsistency. Basically, another thing that narcissists will weaponize against neurodivergent people is how sensitive they are to stimulus. So that makes the cognitive dissonance even harder to process and pick apart and understand. Neurotypical people, because they have their support system and bigger social circles, they can cross-check reality. They can check and validate themselves, and it's easier for them to see that they're being manipulated and gaslit. And the social validation basically helps them break the cycle a lot faster because they have, like, people to fall back on and a lot of people telling them that they're being manipulated. Isolation attempts are usually contradicted by a lot more people when you're neurotypical. It's harder for a narcissist to isolate a neurotypical person because they have, like, a bigger social circle and a bigger support system, and more people telling them that it's not healthy and that there's something off. The things that typical narcissists say, like, no one's going to accept you, no one's going to love you the way that I do, for neurotypical people, they are less likely to accept that because they have other people validating them and telling them that that's simply not true. Whereas if you're neurodivergent, narcissists love to frame themselves as the only people that are ever going to put up with you. And that hits home when you're neurodivergent. Past rejections make that phrase really believable, because you've experienced people abandoning you. Also, the rejection sensitivity makes the impact of those words a little bit stronger, and it makes the words believable because it's already happened before. You've had people reject you. You've been excluded. Even if you have a strong mind like I did, I had my exes say those things to me and I didn't believe them, but there was still a part of me that was hurt by it and, questioned from time to time if is it true? I know it's not true, though. I always knew that there were going to be some people, that accepted me for who I was. So luckily I had that. Just to circle back around to the beginning, that's the reason why it's different when a narcissist is with a neurodivergent person and with a neurotypical person. Because neurodivergent people, they have a lot more empathy, they're more sensitive, and the hyperfocus makes them persistent, whereas with a neurotypical person, they're not going to put up with it. They're just not. Neurotypical people don't stick around. They are not going to be a long-term source of supply, whereas neurodivergent people, they will stay until they are so depleted. They will stay until they have nothing left, until their body is falling apart. They will just give and hyperfocus and try to figure it out and try to sort it out. They're just a very reliable source of supply. Like, that you'll be able to get what you need from a neurodivergent person because you know that they're easier to manipulate and they're easier to isolate and they're easier to gaslight. So that's why it's so important for neurodivergent people to be able to spot narcissists and abuse tactics and manipulation tactics, because we are prime targets. That doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with being neurodivergent and having different wiring. That's not actually the problem. The problem are the people that exploit it. That's what the issue is, because all of these things, the empathy, the hyperfocus, the persistence, the sensitivity, the emotional depth, the deep bonding, all of that stuff, that is something that can make a really healthy relationship thrive, and that's something that you want. That is something that will give you the ability to create a very, very deep, meaningful bond with someone. But of course it has to be somebody who has good intentions, who cares about you, and wants to have a healthy relationship. When you understand why narcissistic people target you, it becomes a lot easier to put certain relationships in your life into perspective and break the cycle. It makes it easier for you to reclaim your perception, reclaim your energy, and to make better choices moving forward with people that can reciprocate, people that value you, people who aren't gonna try and use you as supply. Because there's a lot of energetic vampires in the world. So you have to know what they look like. You have to know what their gameplay is. so you don't get caught up in their, triangulation of supply. So usually with narcissists, they do the love bombing, the devaluing, the discard. When they discard you because maybe you've run out of blood, they're sucking the blood from someone else. And then when they've depleted them, they're going to come back to you, which is like quite horrible when you think about it. That's it for this video, really. Leave me a comment if you want me to talk about something. If you know a neurodivergent person who is having a hard time trying to put the pieces together, send them this video. I will see you in my next video.